Hi, I want to make a video on how us as human beings, us as sentient creatures, us as anything, especially human beings, because we're the ones that understand the full context of this existence other than a perception based on our senses. Say a dolphin is very intelligent, but they don't understand the full context. They understand the context based on their own biology and their circumstances and living. They're very smart, they can interact, they have more interaction with their same kind as same other animals. They're more intelligent. They interact same as primates. They interact on a more intimate level, more intellectual level than most other animals. They're not just based on the crude biology and just letting the crude biology play the game over and over again and being gamed by the system and not recognizing the system, the game that's pushing them forward to do something. So based on this intelligence we have, this vocabulary, and describing these circumstances and understanding the environment and the world that we're living, I'm describing it, understanding it, being able to describe it, understand it based on this awareness, based on this ability to take in the world in a fuller context, based on learning and the development of their brain continuing from birth, growing up, and having that context be projected sort of like oxygen and carbon dioxide. We inhale oxygen and then we exhale carbon dioxide. And that helps the trees, and the trees help us, giving us oxygen, the plants. And that's exactly how our projection works. We take things in, we take things out based on our perceptions and our senses. And this intelligence, interacting and understanding a fuller context of our existence and how we can describe it and explain it to the ignorant, the ones that don't understand it, the ignorant ones, and giving them a fuller context. And obviously there's some innate ability in understanding certain things. More people are more capable of understanding things better, doing things better, having more capabilities, sort of like idiot savants, being able to understand certain things more, having a predisposition of being an ability of super memory, super understanding, super things like this, where they can just photo memory, all sorts of things like that, and being able to recall things, having certain predispositions and abilities to begin, innate abilities you have. But to a certain extent, we can all have this context of understanding the world. Maybe not perceptually understanding the full ins and outs of everything that we're doing, and understanding the full context perceptually, but we can understand based on seeing in our senses and understanding and being able to describe it through words. And that's really the basic thing that we're trying to get across, is at least understand, even if you don't understand yourself, understand saying, sort of like what I'm saying is understanding someone's pain even though you've never been through the pain. And that's really the only thing that matters when it comes to this. You don't need the pain, especially if you can just understand the pain without going through the pain. Sort of like, even if you don't necessarily perceptually recognize the world that you're living in, you can understand it through words and meanings and understanding of things that are happening around you, as opposed to perceptually letting the world or the idea of this thought ingrain you into it and become fully indulged in the perception based on these thoughts. And it's about understanding, say, someone that's going through some kind of pain, as opposed to going through the pain yourself and then understanding. It's all just about understanding to begin with. So yes, all we can do on this, going to the main point I want to say, is all we can do on this existence is pick up messes. All we can do is be janitors, and all we can do is be scooping up the poop. That's all we can do is picking up the mess. We're the super duper pooper scoopers, and that's all we're doing is picking up poop and just trying to get through life, picking up messes, and then reaching the end and giving the full context of an existence based on a beginning and an end. And how we're super special. Obviously human beings are very super special, but our super specialness doesn't do us any good. We can be super special all we want, and that's not going to do anything. Being super special for what? To pick up messes. And even if it wasn't just to pick up messes, super duper, so we're super and special, but okay, I'm special. I can stick my hand to a wall. I'm super special. I can stare at the wall all day. Well, that's good. That's not going to do you any good. Looking at the wall all day, that's good. You're going to look at the wall, look at the wall, look at the wall. It's about leading to something else, and that's the very thing that makes everything very superficial and meaningless, like an appearance. Sort of like snow, and Mendham's used this kind of example when it comes to snowflakes and things, where the uniqueness doesn't really matter in the end, because it's too very superficial, and it's superficial. It's just what's a way of putting this? since everything's unique, it minimizes the uniqueness and so on and so forth. It doesn't mean anything. It's superficial. It's sort of like staring at a wall. It's not about staring at the wall and getting gratification out of it. It's about staring at the wall so you can accomplish something leading on to something else. And that really leads on to the point that, okay, you go over to the wall. Now what you're looking for something new to satisfy. And that's exactly the thing. It's based on momentum leading to an end. And that's the thing that gives life its context, is the end and the beginning. It doesn't matter what happens in the middle. The middle can be completely made of thin air, and that's exactly what's happening based on our senses. We're just perceiving things. We're just touching things. We're just moving momentum. We're jumping. We're landing on the ground. The jump it's a matter of if you landed on the ground and if you jumped to begin with, and how the jump happens. It's just a matter if it jumps off the ground and lands back on the ground. It doesn't matter what happens to begin with. You're in the middle of the air. The only foundation is the ground. Sort of like the sandwich thing I've said. And it's the ground that has foundation, and the air that you're jumping through is very ethereal, and there's nothing to it but just movement and momentum. You could stare at the wall, but the wall has no value beyond you staring at it to gratify yourself, but you're gratifying yourself based on this buzz that you have in your head, based on satisfaction. It's all in here. It's all in our psychology that's giving us satisfaction. Sort of like having sex with someone. It's all in here. Or eating something. It's not the food. It's the gratification that you have from the food. Sort of like it's not the person satisfying you if you're having sex or something. It's coming from inside of yourself. And like I said before, it's not about what happens. Say when you jump in the ground. It's the thin air when you're jumping through the air. It's the ground that gives the foundation. That's the thing that has real weight, is when something starts and when something ends. Say your life or the life game in general or the universe or so on and so forth. The Big Bang. And it's the context is the beginning and the end. Whatever happens in the middle, all the interactions, the thin air, the staring at the wall only to want to go and stare at another wall, leading to something. You can't just be satisfied by staring at a wall unless, obviously, you can just sit there and be satisfied, but then you're satisfied and there's no point in having that satisfaction anymore. Once you've been fully satisfied and you find something, but it's about this not knowing that there's nothing that's going to completely satisfy you. And once you're done being satisfied by this, you're looking for something about flipping a pillow over. Once it gets too warm, you want the cold side of the pillow now, and then you want the other, and you keep flipping the pillow over and over again. And then the only foundation is the ground and the ground on this side. Once you jump, it doesn't matter what happens in the jump. It's in the thin air. It doesn't matter what happens in this thin air to the context of the beginning and end. To us, it means something. And even once we're dead, it means something that it happened. And there's only a zero-sum game to gain from having it exist to begin with to the end. And so it's about minimizing what happens. Based on the mechanism that caused and thrust this kind of thing to happen and exist to begin with. And that's all we're doing is moving momentum. We get the momentum, we're in the air, based on the momentum of going up, and then we go down, and that's all we're doing is going up and down. We're jumping, we're landing. And that goes to individual circumstances in the life game in general, and the circumstances of life, and the grand scheme of things in the world, and the entire universe that we're living in, the reality that we're living in, based on a beginning, a context of a beginning and an end. You can almost say that the end of the universe is when you die, because your perception no longer is interacting with this world. So once you die, the universe ends, at least to you, because that's how exactly it would be perceived. If the universe itself ended, you'd end with it, and if you end, the universe ends anyway. That's a good way of looking at it too. So I think so when it comes to this ethereal nature thing, obviously all we can do is pick up messes, and that's all we can try to accomplish, is pick up these messes that we've been laid down as best as we can. And that's all we can really do is pick up messes. Yeah, and back to the staring at wall thing. You could stare at the wall, but in and of itself, the wall doesn't have value other than satisfying you. And if you could be satisfied by that, once you're fully satisfied, it defeats the point in living. It's about fighting to get your way to the satisfaction, and that's about the deprivation. You're fighting your way to satisfaction and running away from your problem. It's sort of like running away from the problem and running towards the deprivation, the driving force. And that driving force is the very same thing that's chasing you. The thing that you're chasing is the thing that's chasing you. Sort of like you chasing, going around in a circle, spinning around in circles. For what reason? Other than momentum pushing you forward, chasing your tail. And staring at the wall, but you're going to stare at the wall so that you can learn something from staring at the wall, so you can go over here and do something else. You do this, it leads to something else. Your interaction with this leads to something else, leading to all sorts of different reactions happening over and over. Redundancy, but based on this, I'm trying to find a way to best describe this. You stare at a wall so that you can that's the thin air of life, is the ethereal thing, obviously, interacting with things. It's just your psychology interacting, your senses, your peripheral nervous system, such as your hands or something interacting with something, your brain interacting with something else on the outside, such as a noise or a sound or something like that. And we're not doing anything but experiencing these things through our senses. So we look at a wall, and I want to keep going back to that wall thing. You look at a wall so that you can look at another wall, so you can look at another wall, and that's really the jump in the thin air. Say you're jumping, and the foundation is only the ground and the ground on this side, from where you jumped and from where you land, and everything in between is very fleeting, moving. The momentum, it drives you. Obviously, life leads to another problem, another deprivation. You're constantly running around. You can spin around in the circle. You can chase your tail. You can jump and spin around in circles, and that's exactly what we jump. We spin around in some circles. Inside of circles and so on, you reduce it down to the level like the big circle is the life game in general, and then all the little circles happening and things spinning around inside of you, or whatever it may be, such as say these cells and the atoms moving around, spinning and bumping around, can represent a smaller level, like the smaller problems you have in life. And you can spin around in some circles before you land, and then that's the end, and then that gives context to the entire jump that you had. And it doesn't matter how you landed, it's just a matter that you landed, sort of like it doesn't matter if you died. So staring at a wall, so you stare at a wall to stare at a wall, sort of like you stare at something, and to stare at something, you do something, but that doing something just leads to doing something else, and then eventually just leads to the landing on the ground, the end, just leading to something and giving no context of what happened beforehand. It leads to the mechanism that's driving this forward. It doesn't have any consciousness, it's just the driving force based on the mechanism that created the whole thing to begin with. So I think I explained that good enough. I don't know if I made the point as best I can, but all we're doing is picking up messes, and we're spinning around in circles, and when we're landing, and then everything in the middle is thin air. Or either a sandwich or jumping up in the air and spinning around in circles and landing, and it doesn't matter how you land, it just matters that you jumped and you land. If you jump, then the momentum leads to you landing. Based on you go up, then you go down based on the momentum, and then you land, and so on and so forth. So that's all I need to say. So thank you, and until next time, bye.